Hello, I'm Ryan Saab.
Hello, I'm Matthew Nye.
Hello, I'm Coley Slick.
Hello, I'm Alex Walka.
Today we will be discussing the cost analysis of the Quilt Block Wind Farm.
The Darlington Quilt Block Wind Farm was constructed in 2017 and consists of 49 Vesta V10 2 megawatt wind turbines. Constructed on primarily private land, the wind turbines can produce up to 98 megawatts of max capacity power. The goal of this project was to compare the estimated output to the actual output of the Quilt Block Wind Farm. As we go through this project, keep in mind that the actual data will only reflect when the wind farm is running to meet the demand of the grid. When there's limited demand, a portion of the turbines are then turned off. However, the estimated data was collected under the assumption that all turbines were operational at all times. This estimated data will be based upon the temperature, the wind speed, and the precipitation for Darlington, Wisconsin. Now, Cole will talk about how this data was collected and then analyzed.
For weather data, we analyzed each month separately. For each month, we took 3 random samples of 4 days each for each type of weather that we analyzed, including precipitation, temperature, and wind speed. For the precipitation, each day that we analyzed, we were given an average precipitation amount, and we used that for our data analysis. For the temperature, we were given a high temperature and a low temperature, and we took the average of those 2 temperatures on each day and used that in our data analysis. For the wind speed, however, because of our equation that we used, we took a percentile from the 90th, from the 75th percentile, from the 50th percentile, the 25th percentile, and the 10th percentile to make sure that we got a good average for the wind speed. For the data analysis, the precipitation did not have a direct effect on our power equation. However, it did have a correlation and will be talked about later in the presentation. The temperature was used to calculate the rho in our equation, which stands for air density. The wind was the main factor in our power equation. In our equation, we had many variables, including our K, which was our coefficient that converted our power to kilowatts, our C sub P, which is our maximum power coefficient. This power coefficient has a typical range of 0.25 to 0.45, with our turbines having a value of 0.47. The theoretical maximum for this value is 0.59. This comes from Bent's law, which says that you cannot harvest more than 59% of the wind. Next variable in our equation is the rho, which previously stated is air density in pounds per cubic foot. The A in our equation stands for rotor swept area, which is in square feet, and our V is our wind speed, which is in miles per hour.
Throughout this project, we did a lot of MATLAB coding because we decided it would be easier than Excel or a different software and much more efficient. We started our MATLAB code by initializing the actual output of the code. We did this by the function zeros. We found this function by using the help function in MATLAB. The next thing we did is that we looked at a graph and found the megawatt hour output of each month. The data started in the month of October, so that's where our data starts in our MATLAB code. Because the data started in October, we had to put the number for the month in parentheses next to each actual output so it'd be easier to comprehend. We then had to create an array that goes off the number of days of the month. We did this because each month has a different number of days, so it's a lot harder to find the actual output in hours through this. We then had to initialize another array. We did this through the zero function as well. We had to do this for our actual output in the instant. We then created a for loop that went through each month. What it does is it takes the actual output from above and then divides it by 24 for 24 hours in a day, and then divides it by the number of days in the month, which can be found in the array above, and then divides it by 49. It divides it by 49 because that's the number of wind turbines on the farm. For this MATLAB code, we had to obtain multiple wind speeds for multiple random days throughout the month. For each sample day, we had to find the 90th percentile, the 75th percentile, the 50th percentile, the 25th percentile, and the 10th percentile of the wind speed. We also had to create an array for the temperature of each month. We started this by initializing the temperature of each month through the zero function. We then took the high and low temperature of 4 random days and plugged it in to the array for that month. We then found the average temperature for that month using the mean function to get the average temperature for each month. In our MATLAB code, we also found the average precipitation per month using arrays. We started our MATLAB code for this by taking the average precipitation array and zeroing it through a row matrix. We then found the precipitation for 4 random days throughout the month and put them into each array for the month. We then found the average of those 4 precipitations to get the average precipitation per month.
And for this portion of the MATLAB code, we're calculating the output power of the wind turbines. The initial line zeroes out the array. Then after that, there's a for loop that goes down past these ellipses, and it uses each of the different constraints of the equation which was shown in a previous slide. For example, rho, which is the density of air, is in 2 parts, of dry air and of humid air. The density of dry air is calculated with the air pressure, which is the atmospheric pressure, divided by a constant times the Fahrenheit temperature corrected into Kelvin. This equation requires a correction factor, which can be seen at the very end of the line, to convert it into the correct units. The humid air is using the pressure of water vapor divided by a constant times, again, the temperature in Fahrenheit corrected to Kelvin. Cp is the power coefficient, which, as can be seen here, is 46.9%. A is the swept area, and it is shown in the data sheet as 9,503 square meters, but since the equation required square feet, it is corrected using this correction factor. K is again a coefficient to get the correct units. Power with the lowercase p is initialized to 0 for the next part of the code. If I equals 1 signifies as I is 1 is the month of January. So for the month of January, it goes through the 20 different data points and uses the velocity of the wind at each of those data points. It calculates the power and then adds it into a total power through using this equation, which was shown before. At the very end, it takes the total power and divided by the 20 units, gets an average power and stores it into the January location for power. This is then repeated as shown by the ellipses 11 more times. And now, in the next part of the MATLAB code, we're calculating the estimated output of the wind turbines. For this, you use the estimated output is set to a row array, which is zeroed out. After that, a for loop goes through from x equals 1 to x equals 12. With that, it sets the estimated output of each month to the power times 49 for the 49 wind turbines in the farm, times 24 for 24 hours in a day to convert from kilowatts to kilowatt hours, then times the days in the month, which is the array which was shown before, which is the individual days in each month to get the output of the total month, and then at the end divided by 1,000 to get it in megawatt hours instead of kilowatt hours. After that, the year actual output and the year estimated output are used as the sum of the individual arrays. The sums can then be compared because they're both in megawatt hours. At the end, the income actual and the estimated income can be calculated by the actual and estimated respective values for the output times 1,000 to convert from megawatt hours back to kilowatt hours, and then times 3 cents per kilowatt hour for the buyback rate. While many of you might be aware that the normal rate of electricity is 12 to 13 cents per kilowatt hour, that is on a consumer end, where this is on a wholesale price. The wholesale price of electricity for utility to buy is normally around 3 cents per kilowatt hour. And then further, this is a graph which shows the compared output of the actual and estimated values. It is shown that the estimated values are significantly higher in the winter months, but in the summer months, the estimated values are actually lower than the actual values. While that may be surprising, the reason why we're thinking that is the case is because we use a normalized value for the density of humid air, while in these months, the summer months, the density of humid air is going to be greater because there'll be more water vapor in the air. Thus, the estimated output would have theoretically been higher.
Through our analysis, we determined that the size of the Quilt Block wind farm was suitable for the power needs of the Darlington area. The estimated power output of the wind farm was 20% greater than the actual power demand that was generated. This correlates to about 69,000 megawatt hours that would be generated if there was a greater demand. This would lead to an increase in $2.1 million in revenue per year. This was calculated at 3 cents per kilowatt hour and could be increased with an increase in the cost of electricity. Through the use of a storage system, such as batteries, flywheels, or pumped hydroelectric storage, this electricity could be stored when the demand is low. The stored electricity could then be used when there is a greater demand and the wind is not turning the turbines. This would allow for a decrease in power generated by non-renewable resources and an increase in revenue and payback rate. Through this project, we demonstrated a real-life application of MATLAB and the use of probability and statistics. More information about the Quilt Block wind farm, as well as an overview of the wind farm output data and the weather analysis, can be found through these resources.